Hello, you're listening to On Israeli Now Monitor, and I'm Caspit from Tel Aviv. The podcast you're hearing was recorded on the weekend linking the two most symbolic weeks of Israeli statehood. The week during which Israel remembers the Holocaust of the Jewish people, and the week it marks their revival. Exactly a week after marking Holocaust Remembrance Day, last Wednesday, this Wednesday, Israelis will mourn those who died defending the state and then celebrate its hard-won independence achieved 74 years ago against all odds. Our guest today embodies this unique link between our people's greatest tragedy and the amazing miracle to which it gave birth. His parents survived the Holocaust and rebuilt their lives in the Jewish homeland. Benny Gantz himself served in the military for 38 years, first as a paratrooper and eventually as commander of the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces. In recent years, he held the position of alternate prime minister alongside then Prime Minister Netanyahu, and is currently Israel's Minister of Defense. We'll talk with him about the numerous complex challenges facing Israel, Iran's nuclear program, of course, the future of the Gaza Strip, the flashpoints at Jerusalem's holy sites, the war in Ukraine, and its potential impact on Israel's campaign against Iran under a Russian aerial umbrella in Syria. Lieutenant General Benny Gantz joins us right after this short break.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Hagedorn, and I'm the State Department correspondent at Al Monitor.
And I'm Joe Snell, I'm Al Monitor's video editor. Let's admit it, this past year has been difficult to stay on top of the news and sift through what's accurate and what's misleading. Let Al Monitor help you.
If you care about the Middle East and North Africa, you should consider listening to Al Monitor's audio series On the Middle East with Andrew Parasalidi and Amber and Zaman, and On Israel with Ben Caspit. You can now watch our newest video podcast, Reading the Middle East with Gilles Capel. You can subscribe to these series on your favorite podcast platforms.
And through a host of free daily and weekly newsletters, we offer a range of perspectives with the highest journalistic standards. You can subscribe to these newsletters at almonitor.com.
As an award-winning media service headquartered in Washington, D.C., Al Monitor has a network of over 160 contributors around the world.
So if you haven't done so already, be sure to visit almonitor.com, where you can find all of these newsletters and podcasts along with first-class reporting and analysis.
Now I'm privileged to introduce our guest today. He was the chief of staff of the Israeli IDF. Now he's the defense minister of the state of Israel, Lieutenant General Benny Gantz. Hi, Benny. Shalom. Thank you for joining us here on Israel in Al Monitor.
Shalom, Ben, and shalom to our audience.
Okay, I want to start not talking about security and all the problems, but something more intimate maybe. It's very intimate, but it is also very Israeli. And your mother, Malka Weiss, survived the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp. Her relatives were murdered by the Nazis as young refugees. Your parents, Nachum and Malka, tried to reach Palestine, but their ship was turned back by the British authorities and sent to Cyprus. You yourself were born in Israel. I would imagine that for you, this is a particularly emotional time. First, as you remember your relatives who perished, then as you commemorate your fellow soldiers killed in Israel's wars, some of whom you personally sent into battle, and then as a leader in the independent Jewish state. Could you share with us some of your thoughts, your feelings in these very sensitive days between the Holocaust Day and the Independence Day?
Yes, Ben, this is definitely an emotional period for me, and I guess for many Israelis and Jews around the world. All those 3 days of Yom HaShoah, Yom HaZikaron, and Yom HaAtzmaut memorial days for both the Holocaust and our Memorial Day, and of course, the Day of Independence. I will share with you that just recently, a piece was published about the persecution and the murder of Romanian Jews, written from my father's perspective. I learned that my father actually fought in one of the independence battle over Be'erot Yitzhak, which was one of the most difficult fights in 1948, and lost many of his close friends. In one of his diaries, I also found a description of the time that he spoke with me about the importance of drafting to the military combat positions. So indeed, this is very emotional for me. And in this period of security and social tensions, I think about my parents and the hundreds of thousands of Jews like them who lost so much and survived the Holocaust. And after all the suffering, they gathered the strength to come here and build our country. As their descendants, we have the privilege, and I would say even the duty and honor to continue their legacy and secure the state of Israel. And as you can imagine, I wish they could be here to see me together with the many friends I lost along the years. But you know, that it is what it is, and we must move on and continue the missions and make sure that we are justifying the terrible cost that as the Jewish people we paid in the Holocaust, and as military organizations we have paid along the years to make sure Israel exists
without threats. And so let's jump into exactly this. And one of the major problems, I'm taking now you back to the present. One of the greatest problems that Israel faces, the government has achieved a significant milestone in convincing the US administration not to remove the Iranian Revolutionary Guard from the list of terrorist organizations. This could prevent the signing of the new agreement on Iran's nuclear agreement. In your view, which alternative better serves Israel's interests, a highly flawed agreement with Iran or no agreement at all?
We're definitely facing a very complex strategic situation. And I hope that the war in Ukraine will not push the Iranian issue aside. And I would say about the nuclear agreement, that first and foremost, I would say that Israel is doing everything together with its partners to influence possibly agreement in order to improve it if there will be one. And regardless of whether or not the agreement will be signed, we will continue to highlight Iran's activities and encouraging our partners to take actions, because I must emphasize, as I've been doing for in so many different events, that Iran is first and foremost a global challenge, then it's a regional challenge, and only then it is a threat to the state of Israel. And I think that the world should not look at it as if it is solving an Israeli problem. It is helping itself. And regarding the FTO and the revolutionary regards, we need to remember that Iran is the biggest exporter of terrorism in the world and should be treated as such. Therefore, I think it is important to insist on keeping them on the list. And from an Israeli perspective, whether there'll be an agreement or won't be an agreement, we will always know how to defend ourselves by ourselves and to build the capabilities to deal with to face the threat. That was the case in all different situations before, and this is no different now.
You answered many of the questions I wrote for myself about the Iranian issue. But let me emphasize maybe the last one, because much has been, you just said Israel will keep the possibility or the ability to defend itself by itself. And much has been made of what Israel calls this military option, and the government has allocated lately major budgets for upgrading its capabilities for such a response. As Israel's defense minister, can you tell us how realistic a military option is for blocking Iran's nuclear program? How long would it take Israel to achieve the military capabilities necessary to set back the Iranian program by at least 2 to 3 years?
Yeah. Well, indeed, Iran has advanced significantly in the last year, and it is quite close, I would say, weeks away from what we call professionally SQ1. That does not mean that Iran is close to having a nuclear weapon, because it still needs to develop quite many certain capabilities. With your permission, Ben, I would like to re-express that the United States have constantly expressed its commitment never to allow Iran to become a nuclear country. And as I said before, we need to remember that Iran is a global and regional challenge, and not only a threat to the state of Israel. Therefore, it's very important to make sure it never become a nuclear state. We are developing, we do have our capabilities, and we are strengthening them in order to defend ourselves. As you probably assumed before, I cannot really elaborate on our present and future capabilities, but I can say that we have those capabilities in our hands, and we will keep strengthening them, and we will be able, regardless of timing, to be effective operationally speaking. But with your permission, Ben,
not go into details.
I won't go into details on this issue.
Okay, so my last question about this issue is that it's not secret that you're not exactly on the same page as Prime Minister Bennett and Foreign Minister Lapid regarding Israel's policies vis-à-vis Washington on the Iran issue. The official explanation that we've been getting is that you don't criticize American policy on Iran because you're looking at the long term and at your responsibility for maintaining Israel's vital defense and strategic relations with Washington. Is this a calculated decision that Bennett and Lapid will play the bad cop while you remain the good cop vis-a-vis the US? Or are there really ideological differences between you?
Ben, you know me, to be the good cop is kind of my character. But,
exactly.
Yeah, seriously speaking, I think we are basically on the same page, and we work in coordination between us and with the United States administration. We coordinate before any meeting we have with US officials that come to visit Israel, and before we go to visit them. I would like to remind everyone, and I believe that the Prime Minister and Foreign Minister agree with me on this, that Israel is no closer or other strategic partner than the United States, regardless of who's in the White House. So the dialogue with our partner is conducted in appropriate channels, and I think we all looking at the big pictures, and everyone has his own style, but definitely we all think that it is very important to be strategically strong vis-a-vis Iran, and I think that that's what's going to happen.
Okay, I want to ask now a question about the recently experience we are all having with the 4, now it's 5, because yesterday terrorists near Ariel in Samaria shot dead an Israeli, and this is the 5th terror act that is done by lone terrorists not affiliated with any organized infrastructure. In your assessment, is this wave over? Now, actually, we got yesterday a proof that it is not over. Do you see a guiding hand behind these attacks, despite the fact that they were not carried out by any organization? We are hearing talk about Hamas playing a double game. On the one hand, preventing attacks on Israel from Gaza in order to continue its economic rehabilitation, and on the other hand, inciting anti-Israel attacks in the West Bank. Is this how you see it?
Yeah, first and foremost, I'd like to express my condolences to the families of the victims. And those are indeed very difficult days. And I must say that I'm certain that as we did before, we will catch those terrorists of the last events, and we will continue to defend ourselves. Our enemies, may be able to hurt us, but I don't think they can harm the deep security of Israel, and we will not let them win. There are some sensitive days ahead of us, approaching the holidays of both Islamic society and the Jewish society in Israel. The situation is very tense, and the incitement, as you can imagine, is ongoing and still spreading. As of dealing with the terrorists wave, which is not really organized, but the inspiration is very much there. I think the way to deal with it is exactly what we have been doing, and while doing our best to separate between the terrorists themselves and the most part of the society, we must conduct intelligence, offensive and defensive operations. And from an Israeli society perspective, we must remain resilient as a society in the face of terrorism, and we should not let it break our spirits. We're watching what's happening in Gaza. Since operation of Guardian Walls, my policy has been very clear to be very conservative on the security approach alongside humanitarian policy that enables improvement of the basic economical condition, which I will be very happy to keep if indeed it will stay quiet. I must emphasize, Ben, that for us, freedom of worship is a basic policy that we maintain, and we saw hundreds of thousands of people are coming to worship, and I think that they should appreciate what we are doing, and we should not be pulled by the extremists, because if we will be pulled by them, we are enabling them to achieve their goals. Exactly.
So you also answered my question about the Temple Mount, which is the most dangerous dynamite kegs maybe in the world. Right now, it is relatively quiet. You think we are over the hype or the edge, or is it still dangerous like you just said in the upcoming few days?
It is very sensitive, but as I said, we are taking all the measures to enable freedom of worship, and those who violate the holiness of the place, as far as the Temple Mount, are extremists fueled by false information and incitement. Unfortunately, mostly young people influenced by online incitement. and organized by Hamas or other terrorist organizations. We reinforced our troops, increased whatever we could in terms of intelligence, and have high level of coordination between the different security establishments. All the leaders of Israel, definitely the Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister, and myself hold this position of freedom of worship while keeping the security. And we communicate this with all our friends in the region and in the world. And we will continue to do so. I think if somebody wants to understand reality, he's capable of doing it. If we just follow the incitement without checking the base, then it's a big issue, but we try to minimize that as much as possible.
Okay, moving to Europe, it's no secret that you're no, I'm sorry. This is not the question about Ukraine, because I think, if I'm not wrong, that you decided not long ago, maybe Israel is reportedly supplying Ukraine with the defense means for which it has been begging for months, flak jackets and helmets. Could this creeping Israeli move to the side of Ukraine and the West damage our important and sensitive security ties with Russia, and maybe limit our freedom to act in the skies over Syria and Lebanon?
Yeah. First of all, I'm very sorry about the war in Ukraine, and I hope it will come to a soon end, as soon as possible end. We are continuing our activities in the northern arena, and as we do in all fronts, and we are maintaining our coordination with the Russians in this region. At the same time, I think I can state clearly that Israel stands with the West under the leadership of the United States and Europe. We express this in words and in our humanitarian support to Ukraine, including the delivery of protective gear, as you mentioned, to the emergency organizations. We will keep it. Of course, we are not involved in the war itself. A war that, as I said, I hope will come to its end as much as possible.
Do you fear, I just reminded myself this issue, do you fear a possibility of deterioration of this war to something non-conventional, chemical or nuclear? There are talks here and there that it's possible.
I hope it won't deteriorate to those directions. Saying that, it even increases the importance of not letting the Iranian become nuclear, because if we want to intercept Iran's regional aggressiveness and global activity in terrorism aspects, imagine how difficult it might be to deal with it while Iran is nuclear capable. So therefore, I hope that in Europe, the nuclear aspect won't become part of the campaign, and we must make sure it doesn't reach other regions in future times.
Yes, it can affect. Maybe people in the world will see the demonstration of such a danger. I think my final question is more optimistic. Israel is just, you cannot have an optimistic chat with the Defense Minister of Israel, I think, in the last 74 years. But Israel has just announced successful trials of a revolutionary aerial interception system using laser rays. When will this system be operational, and do you see it as a true game changer for Israel, along with the Iron Dome anti-missile system that will protect Israel against the missile threat by Hezbollah? And this is the first and last time we mention Hezbollah in this conversation.
Yeah, indeed, this is meaningful progress that we have done. but I should emphasize that we are in the beginning of the process. I trust that the defense establishment and our industries will succeed at this very important mission. I would not specify, a time or elaborate on operational plans, but we are moving forward. It will be a complement on our existing multi-layered air defense, and it will enable us a lot to defend ourselves. And I think it will serve many countries that will be willing to use that kind of capabilities. It's very important. But I must emphasize, Ben, that while it is very important to continue to strengthen our defense capabilities, it is important that other than the defense means we should and we are continuing to strengthen our offensive capabilities, because eventually this is what win wars. Wars are not being won by, you cannot win a war by defensive means, you can win a war by offensive means, and you must keep the balance of the two.
Maybe in our next conversation, we'll talk about winning wars, especially after we're seeing that the war in Europe cannot be won, but this is for the next time.
Yeah.
I want to thank you very much, Defense Minister Benny Gantz, for joining us here on Israel and Al Monitor. Thank you again, and may we have a quiet Independence Day next week. Toda rabba, Benny. Thank you.
Toda rabba. Thank you very much, and let's hope for quiet days. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll take now a short break, and we'll be back right after that.
Hello, I'm Gilles Kepel, professor at Sciences Po and Normal Sup in Paris, and author of a number of books and articles on the Middle East. Through my new podcast, Reading the Middle East, on the award-winning media service Al Monitor, we will take a deep dive into the trends in the region with the authors and thought leaders who are shaping how we think about the Middle East. Reading the Middle East will be a fantastic addition to Al Monitor's outstanding podcast lineup, including On the Middle East with Andrew Paraziliti and Amber Zaman, and On Israel with Ben Caspit. You can subscribe on your favorite listening platforms. We look forward to your joining our conversation.
Thank you for staying with us. Let's try to remember a few of the headlines we were just given by the Defense Minister Benny Gantz. First, we spoke about, of course, the Iranian threat, and the Defense Minister said that Israel should act as not as the Iranian threat is an Israeli matter. He said that the Iranian nuclear program is first and foremost a global challenge for the whole world, then a regional challenge, of course, for Israel and all the states in the Middle East, especially the Gulf states and the neighboring states of Iran, and only then it's an Israeli challenge or problem. And he said that the world is not solving an Israeli. The world is not supposed to come and save Israel from the Iranian nuclear threat. The world should remember North Korea. It's a global interest to take care or to make sure that Iran will not be nuclear. I asked him about the difference between his analysis and acts and statements, and the other two guys in the Israeli triumvirate in the leadership. I'm talking, of course, about Prime Minister Bennett and Foreign Minister Lapid, that they are criticizing more harshly the negotiation with Iran and the news that maybe the United States agreed to take off the revolutionary guards, Iranian revolutionary guards, out of the terror list. So Benny Gantz said that no, it's not that we think different. He said that my style is different. And I asked him if he is the good cop or the bad cop, and they are the bad cops. And he said, I'm usually all my life the good cop, and he's right. I know this guy for many years now, and he's a good cop by nature. But of course, he said that it's very important to not to let the Revolutionary Guards that he declared as the biggest export of terror in the region to take it out of from the list of terror organizations. Another interesting headline that he said about the war in Ukraine, that he hopes that this war will not push aside the Iranian problem or the Iranian threat, because the world is too focused in what is going on, the terrible things that are going on in Mariupol and other places in the Ukraine. I asked Benny Gantz a delicate question about the Israeli military option. I know that Israel is investing right now many billions of shekels in the military option that was frozen in the last Netanyahu years. And he said, we have ability, and he meant ability to strike the nuclear infrastructure in Iran. We are making this ability and these capabilities stronger in order that we'll have the ability to, Israel should always be able to defend itself by itself. But of course, he did not say, he said that he cannot really elaborate into details about this very so delicate issue. I think the biggest thing he said is that Iran advanced significantly in the last year, talking about nuclear, and it is close now weeks from what we call professionally SQ1. SQ1 is that when a state have enough quantity of enriched uranium to military degree in order to make one bomb. So actually Iran is close to this point, weeks close, but the defense minister emphasized that he doesn't say that Iran is nuclear or it's a threshold state, because there are many other things it has to know how to do. What we call professionally weaponizing, to build a bomb, not only enough material, you have to be able to build the bomb in the size of a basketball ball and to put it in a warhead of a missile. And they need maybe, this is what I'm saying, not the defense minister, between 2 more years in order to do it. I asked him another delicate question about Ukraine. What will happen if because the relationship between Israel and Russia are I think it's a deterioration after Israel declared many times in the last few weeks a lot of criticism about the brutality of Russia, voted against Russia. Now it was published that Defense Minister Benny Gantz is approved bringing the Ukrainians or supplying the Ukrainians defensive material, not offensive, of course. And so Gantz said he's very sorry about the war. He hopes it will end very soon. Israel has to be, in this case, with the West and the United States. But Israel, the cooperation with the Russians vis-a-vis the northern front here is going on, and Israel is acting against Iran right now as well. We're not going to halt it. Last but not least, we spoke about the laser technology that Israel now is working on, talking about interception of rockets and shells and missiles. And the defense minister approved that there is a significant progress in the Israeli plan, in this plan. We are in the beginning of the process, he said, but it will happen and it will be operational. And it's a huge Israeli success. that will help us with this ability that we're talking about to be able to protect ourselves. And many countries have already said that they will very much want to acquire these abilities from Israel whenever it will be ready. I'm saying Prime Minister Bennett was too optimistic when he declared a few weeks ago it will take 1 or 2 years. I think within 3 years we will see first operational laser interception systems alongside with Iron Dome in Israel. I hope you found this conversation interesting. And I hope to meet you here next week in the same place and time in On Israel and Al Monitor. I'm Ben Caspit from Tel Aviv. Take care and bye-bye.